Hey, how's it going everybody? Matt Houston here, and today we're going to go over the spell list for the Illrigger. I am excited to finish up this class and see what else we can find within it. This being a very much an ability slash spell oriented class, even for the Painkiller, which is very much a frontline martial style of this class, is definitely a caster slash curse slash spell ability type class. They get one extra attack, very similar to that of the paladins. We're going to find out what we get in here. They get our half level casters, but there's a number of interesting spells that are not from the regular spell list that are custom to the Illrigger, and we're going to explore some of those. This is very much a paladin meets warlock kind of style spell list, so we're just going to take these down alphabetically and see where we end up. And to start things off, we have Aura of Desecration, a 5th level abjuration spell, 30 foot centered around yourself. Concentration 10 minutes. Life defiling energy radiates from you in an aura with a 30-foot radius. Until the spell ends, the aura moves with you, centered on you. Each creature in an aura, except you, takes 1d6 damage at the beginning of each of your turns, and you heal an amount equal to the total damage inflicted on all characters. This, I would say, is a very good spell for two reasons. One, it's only verbal, which means that you can be very much have both of your hands tied up completely. You don't have to be able to gesture in order to be able to use it. This is a very good spell for that Painkiller oriented archetype where you just get in there, get right into the crowd, start cutting and dealing damage to everything, and just keep that life total up. This is a really cool spell. I like it. Very anti-paladin-esque. But to continue with the auras, we have Aura of Loathing. Same deal. 4th level spell. Those who gaze upon your magnificent feels deeply inadequate. Creatures who begin their turn in the aura and who do not take the precautions to avert their eyes suffer a penalty to their attack rolls equal to your charisma modifier. And is that it? That is it. So it's an inherent negative to their charisma modifier in a 30-foot radius around you. And they can avert their eyes, which means that they are considered blind when trying to attack you, which is very good. So you can either take the disadvantage or take the flat reduction. In a lot of the cases, that's going to be interchangeable. But this is useful because that means if you already have disadvantage, you can just avert your eyes anyways. I don't know if I would put this as a 4th level spell myself. I think this feels more like a 3rd level spell just because of its power level. Because of the number of ways that work around it, I should say. However, because this works in a crowd, it's very, very good. So maybe the 4th level is actually very appropriate. Again, solely a verbal spell, so definitely meant for the Painkiller. Moving on to Burning Halo, a 2nd level spell. Concentration up to 1 minute. You gift an enemy with a fiery halo that infects their mind and internal thoughts, causing them to see allies as enemies. Choose a creature you can see within range. They must succeed on a charisma saving throw or be charmed by you for the duration. While under your sway, a halo of fire floats above the head's target. This is sounding a lot like Crown of Madness, but better. The charmed target must use their action before moving on each of their turns and make a weapon attack against a creature other than itself that you mentally select. The target acts normally on their turn if you choose no creature or if there are none within range of their weapon. On your subsequent turns, you can choose your action to maintain control over the target, or the spell ends. The target can make a charisma saving throw at the end of each of its turns. On success, the spell fades. So this is very much just a new style of Crown of Madness. The very obvious difference here is that Crown of Madness is, for one, has no material component. Second, is 120 feet. Now, the difference here, of course, is that Burning Halo is a charisma save as opposed to a wisdom save, which is, in theory, better. A lot of creatures that you want to try and charm or have an effect on, you want to have charisma to be the effect, as most creatures will have lesser in the charisma field if they are martial-oriented characters. Of course, this is not true with paladins, but a lot of martial-oriented characters tend to be less on the charisma side. Outside of that, this spell works pretty much the same. So I'd say this is a very appropriate spell. in terms of how the game is designed. However, this would probably make the cut for my list of spells that I would probably want to make better. The thing is that this requires your action to maintain this. Now, that can be very good, especially if you have other team members affecting characters as to where they are, or somebody else has two characters locked in place, or you have some sort of physical barrier that's keeping them from leaving each other's sides. Whatever the case may be, this, unfortunately, just even though it's a charisma save, making it, in my opinion, better than Crown of Madness, it being a 30-foot range spell just makes it feel so much worse. I don't know if I would actually ever take this if I was playing this class, honestly. I think you would have to honestly make this a bonus action to maintain control over the target in order to make this worth it. But I would also make it so that when someone attacks them, they get another attempt at saving the against the spell. Making it so that it's more efficient for you to use it, but it's also more efficient for them to try and remove it. I feel like lower level spells should be just as powerful as higher level spells in theory, but they are higher risk in that they can be compelled to fall apart there are more things that can make them fall apart. Furious Interject. One action, instantaneous, and it is a verbal. Consume a seal on an enemy within 30 feet. Every ally adjacent to the enemy may use the reaction to immediately make a melee attack against the enemy. This is really cool. Again, a lot of the stuff with the Illrigger is designed around strategical combat with allies. And I really like this spell. It makes you kind of it lets you dogpile or all-out attack if you're looking for a Persona reference. It lets you really lay into someone on your turn if you want to finish a target or just get that big bulk damage in, or if you happen to have a lot of people that are kind of around your marked target for all intents and purposes. This is a really good way to lay things in. And it being a first level spell makes it pretty good. I think this is actually very, very powerful for a first level spell. However, it requires the resources of other allies to be of use. So it creates opportunities as opposed to actually being powerful in of itself. I think this is quite good. One thing I will say that I'm noticing here, and it may change soon as we go down, is that there doesn't appear to be very many upcasting effects. We'll see if there's a few things here soon enough for that. Continue on with the first level evocation spell. We have Hell Lash, another 30-foot spell. You produce a whip of electric red energy that lashes out at a creature within range, creating a conduit between you and the target. Make a ranged spell attack against the creature. On hit, the target takes 1d10 fire damage, and on each of your turns for the duration, you can use your action to deal 1d10 fire damage to the target automatically. The spell ends if you use your action for anything else. The spell also ends if the target is ever outside the spell range or if it has a total cover from you. If the target has one of your seals, the damage from Hellish Conduit is maximized. At first, this sounded a lot like Witch Bolt. However, Witch Bolt does 1d12 and you can upcast it. I would honestly allow you to upcast it for the frontal damage of this, and for the simple fact that if you have a seal on them, the damage is maximized. I think that using Hell Lash in combination with a seal and then being able to upcast it is a good way for this class to have a powerful nuke. And with all the other limitations that are in here, I think it's very appropriate for a first level spell. And again, it's basically Witch Bolt with a small alteration here. I think this is very, very good. I think this is very appropriate. I like this spell. I would just add an upcasting effect to increase the initial casting by a d10 every spell level up, allowing you to cast it up to 5d10, or in this case, 50 damage, and then being able to subsequently do an additional 10 damage every turn after that. It sounds like a lot, but when you consider a lot of 5th level spells by other casting classes are doing similar damage, I think this is very appropriate. Continuing on, we have Immobilizing Interdict until the end of your next turn. So this is very much going to be a round-long ability. Consume a seal on a target within 30 feet. The target must make a charisma save or become restrained until the end of your next turn. You get to do some damage because you are consuming a seal. You spend a spell slot and you restrain the target if they fail to save. for a first level spell, this is a pretty good control spell. Restrainment only immobilizes targets and causes disadvantage on attack rolls. So it's pretty good for a single round first level spell. Interdict Barrier, 4th level spell. Until the end of your next turn, consume a seal on a target within 30 feet. The target must make a charisma saving throw. If they fail, they cannot attack you until the end of your next turn. This feels like a 2nd or 3rd level spell, not a 4th level spell. Because they can just swap targets. This spell feels a lot like Sanctuary, which is a 1st level spell. And granted, it causes opponents to have to make a wisdom save or they do not attack the target. They can either attack a new target or they lose it for their turn. But there's 2 things here that are very important. One, you cannot attack anything while using Sanctuary. So that immediately means that this is more powerful. Sanctuary is a bonus action and also does not require concentration and goes for a whole minute. This feels like a 2nd or 3rd level spell to me. Being 4th level feels a little insane. Also, I would allow for an upcasting of this to add an additional target per level that you cast above. As an action, I feel it is still appropriate, and it can be very good if you want to use this with something like if you multi-class and you want to action surge and maintain concentration on something like Hell Lash. But even then, I think this is a little too expensive for what it does. At the very least, there should be an upcasting to target more creatures. Interdict. A bonus action, immediate on instantaneous, place a seal on every enemy within 30 feet. This does not use any of your seals. Whoa. Okay. That is cool. Oh, that's awesome. That works well with anything of your abilities that consume seals or just works on targets that have seals. That's a good spell. That's fireball right there. That's your fireball. I don't think there's anything I can say on that. There's just so much you can do with that, even just spell wise. But if we start looking at, you know, other things like spells that have seals on them, like have disadvantage against your spells, or that you have advantage while attacking them. You're invisible to them when they have seals. Like, there's so much cool stuff you can do with that. Oh, that is awesome. I like that. Loquelic Interdict. 2nd level spell, bonus action. You place as many of your remaining seals as you wish on a target. So this is actually kind of like a very appropriate 2nd level version of this previous spell, which is you just place all your seals on a single target. Again, however, this makes a lot of sense because the difference between 2nd and 3rd level spells throughout the rest of the game are kind of crazy. So it being this much of a difference feels appropriate. Again, this is very good. It lets you place a number of seals on a single target, which means that you don't have to spend a number of turns doing it. Rejuvenating Interdict. Until the end of your next turn, your enemy's life force restores your ally's health. Until the end of your next turn, when an ally makes a successful melee weapon attack against an enemy with one of your seals on it, they heal 1d6. This does not consume the seals. So this is very, very handy, again, if you want to pile on a single enemy. Also, very good if you just, mass seal everything. Again, this is a class about the seals, and a lot of these spells also work with the seals. This essentially replaces all the smite-like abilities that the paladin gets, but you get really cool stuff. I would absolutely love to play a character like this. Single combat. You offer a creature a challenge that they might not be able to resist. One creature within range who can see and hear you must make a charisma saving throw. On a failed save, the creature falls for your ruse and must fight you. For the duration, they have a disadvantage on the attacks that do not include you and must make a charisma save each time they attempt to move away from you. The spell ends if you attack any other creature, if you cast a spell that doesn't include the creature as a target, if an ally damages the target, or if the target them with a spell, or if you end your turn more than 30 feet away from the target. Say hello to Compelled Duel. Compelled Duel, for example, requires a bonus action, meaning you can utilize your abilities in the same turn. Furthermore, It is a charisma save for single combat, as opposed to a wisdom save for compelled duel. There's also a couple of very slight differences between this spell, how this spell ends. For example, you can still, the things that are the same here is, of course, you still cannot attack any other creature, or if you cast a spell that targets a hostile creature other than the target. The difference here with single combat is that if you cast a spell that on any creature that doesn't include the target, which means you cannot cast spells on yourself. Not that most of the spells that the Illrigger gets is buffing in the first place, but that is a thing to make note of. All the things are the same for if an ally damages the target. Another thing here is if any ally damages the target or targets them with a spell, that it immediately ends. Compelled duel, it ends if you cast a harmful spell on them. So you can cast a harmless spell on them for compelled duel. Lastly, if you end the spell more than 30 feet away, then this spell also ends, making the single combat 60-foot range kind of a moot point. With the number of differences and things of the sort, it isn't really worth, in my opinion, creating a secondary spell. And this is another criticism I have of Burning Halo, is that both of these spells are really copying another pre-existing spell, but they alter a few things about it. There is very much, I would say, this is actually a less good version of Compelled Duel. You could argue that it would be silly to give them Compelled Duel, but I think Compelled Duel would be just a better thing to do. The big benefit here, of course, is that it is a charisma-based saving throw, which is far less common than a wisdom saving throw. So there is that. This feels like a less good version of Compelled Duel. Maybe that's the idea. I'm not entirely certain, but overall, this spell, much like Burning Halo compared to Crown of Madness, feels underwhelming, but most definitely interesting. Summon Hell. This is a big range spell. Let's see what this does. It requires a piece of sulfur. Let's see what it is. You manifest a mote of hell on the mundane world. A 15-foot radius sphere of darkness, brimstone, and blasting heat arrives, centered on a point within range and lasting for the duration of the spell. The cloud of hellfire echoes with the cries of damned souls that can be heard by anyone within 30 feet of the cloud. No light, not even magical light, can illuminate the area, and any creature fully within the area are blind. The cloud wraps the time, space, and the area is difficult terrain. Any creature that starts its turn in the area takes 2d6 fire damage. Any creature that ends its turn in the area must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or take 2d6 psychic damage as the voices of the damned crowd their mind. So this is a new version of Hunger of Hadar. However, it is very much a different kind of spell in that regard. And you know what? Like Warlock spells, like Fireball spell, this is a cool spell. I love Hunger of Hadar, and this is a fantastic way to flavor a hellish style of it. It does similar damage to Hunger of Hadar. Aside from that, it is slightly smaller in the sense of its space, as Hunger of Hadar is a 20-foot radius sphere as opposed to this being a 15-foot radius sphere. However, there are a number of other things that are important here, and that this is a wisdom save specifically on the psychic damage, which is very, very important that it does just as much damage, but it's fire and psychic as opposed to cold and acid. This also is very different damage types. I like Hunger of Hadar simply because it does cold and acid, but it does a lot of the same things. And its difference in how it's flavored and its space taking up slightly different, I really like this spell. This is truly the Hunger of Hadar Fireball style spell that this class, as a casting class, would really need. And finally, Ultimatum, an appropriate final spell on the list, a 5th level spell. Consume all seals on all enemies within 30 feet. Each of those enemies must make a charisma saving throw or suffer 5d10 necrotic damage per seal on a failed save, half as much on a successful one. And there is the level 5 nuke. This is the casting class styles, big spell. You can set this up really well with the 3rd level interdict spell that lets you just put seals on everything. This is a powerful nuke that is going to do a lot of damage and give you a lot of health, because if we remember, and I was wondering about this when I had first originally read it, because remember, if you are within 30 feet of the target, you heal 1 point of damage per each die of damage your seals inflict. Well, because this is damage based on your seals, this is dealing 5d10. So you gain 5 additional hit points per target, plus the 2d6s that you deal, which is crazy amounts of health. This is a very powerful spell. It does a lot of damage. It heals you for quite a bit. It does require you to, in order to be able to get a big nuke out of it, it does require you 2 spells in order to get massive amounts out of it. It is very much a setup and payoff kind of spell. This is very, very good. It wouldn't be hard, and it's not hard to pull this off, especially if you can get right in there. If there is a crowd of enemies that you are facing, even if there's like 3 of them, this spell on its own, between the 2, is totally worth it, in my opinion. Being able to deal 2d6 plus 5d10 necrotic damage to every single target is awesome. Overall, I think this is a very well done set of spells and a very well done class. I'm kind of impressed overall. I do like the difference of what they had done in the creation of this class in adding spells that combine extraordinarily well, specifically the class abilities of this class. The Paladin did have stuff that was sort of like that, in that they did get smite-oriented spells that they could also Divine Smite on top of. All in all, though, I very much like this class. I think the flavor is done fantastically. This is very much a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition style class, and I think that it should very much use the same language. It looks like it attempts to use the same language, but falls short in a number of locations, and there's a number of things that I would say are stated that don't necessarily deal in absolutes and could be understood slightly differently. That being said, I think that this overall is very well designed as a class. Would be extremely fun to play. It's very much a team-oriented class, though. You need to have allies that are willing to work around your strategies. You need to discuss strategies and have strategies built around your allies. This is a setup and payoff style class, setup and payoff style spells, especially with the Ultimatum, but other spells do that as well. I want to say very powerful and fun looking class, and I would love to play it if it wasn't so damn evil. I will definitely be making an NPC that does this, and maybe possibly a villain. We'll see how that goes. So what are your guys' thoughts? I think all these spells are very interesting. Some of them are less good, or maybe slightly better, or just different versions of other spells that exist, such as Burning Halo, Hell Lash, and Single Combat, as well as Summon Hell, are very clearly inspired by other spells that already exist. What are your thoughts? Do put the comments in the troll nest on the underside of this video, and don't forget to leave a like if you did, and of course subscribe so that you don't miss another video. And until next time, guys, have a good day.